Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right. Gus Malzahn has infuriated the Gators, the Miami Hurricanes, and the Florida State Seminoles. And also, our guy, Joe Milton, says he doesn't lose in Florida. Now, he didn't say he doesn't lose to Florida. He said, I don't lose in Florida. He also talked about the Big Ten and the difference between the SEC and the Big Ten. And we're going to talk about that as well. This is going to be an interesting show because I did a show yesterday that really kind of upset some folks in Florida. It was this one right here. Another QB flip, Florida panics, and all that. Now, look, all I did was show 3 Florida YouTubers, all very popular, by the way, and they actually put out really good content. I would not feature a YouTuber if they didn't put out good content. I'll just go ahead and tell you. But they all 3 had a Saturday night, called it live, talking about this possible flip, the rumors, Coach Hayes, all of that. And I showed every bit of it. If you've not seen that and you want to, just check out that video. I'm not going to replay a bunch of it and all that because it'll upset the Gators and all their fans, and I don't want to upset them anymore. Boy, they came after me.
It's time for Born to Fly, ladies and gentlemen. Get your digital cameras ready.
Oh, yeah, right off the top rope, baby. It was something else. You should have seen the comments. Oh, my gosh. They were flipping out. They were flipping out about the possible flip. But look, you know, that's what's out there. They've had 2 quarterbacks flip. 2. Would it surprise you if there was a third? Third time's a charm. So anyway, but one thing that I have realized, and I've been kind of realizing it, see, we think we have this big feud with Florida and Alabama. We don't know what a feud is. We really don't. Unless you've seen Alabama and Auburn, Clemson, South Carolina, or any of the teams in Florida. That can be Florida, Florida State, or Miami. There's something about living together like they do. The amount of vitriol towards each other is intense. And I've been noticing a bunch because when I watch these Florida channels, they go at each other hard. Well, they do have one thing that's brought them together, and that's UCF, because Gus Malzahn and Central Florida, which is a good, solid team, by the way, they're going into the Big 12, so they're going to be a Power 5 club, man. And they say, hey, we're ready for our arrival, and they're ready to be seen. And Gus Malzahn came out and just stated it, and it has got the Florida folks, and I mean all 3 sets of fan bases and YouTubers all tore up. And he did an interview, and Gus said UCF is among the big 4 college football teams in Florida. And let me show you exactly what he said. He said, you here think about the big 3 of Florida, Florida State, and Miami. It's time for the big 4. You look at the last 6-8 years, we've been as good or better than any of those other programs. Oh, snap. He just did it. Oh, boy. Not only is he saying, I'm just as good as you, I've been better than you. And it has not gone over well at all. So let's see what some of these YouTubers have had to say about it. And this first guy, I believe it's Double Fries, No Slaw, and I think I've featured him once before. He's got a pretty good size YouTube channel, and let's see what he's got to say about this UCF comment by Gus.
Phrase "stay in your lane" was ever applicable in college football. We have found the exact time and place. In a recent interview, Gus Malzahn of UCS whined about the fact that his team wasn't part of the Big 3 in the state of Florida. Now, you will rarely hear me say nice things about Miami and Florida on this channel. We're going to set the rivalry aside for the next few minutes, and we're going to talk about Gus Malzahn's comments. His exact quote was, you here, think about the Big 3, Malzahn said of Florida, Miami, and Florida State. It's time for the Big 4. You look at the last 6-8 years, we've been as good or better than any of those other programs. End quote.
Oh, well, there's strikes 2 and 3 right there.
A lot of articles have been written and a lot of takes have gotten off about Gus's comments. The UCF coach obviously has ruffled a few feathers here, and of course, we take issue with it. Now, I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but I understand what Gus is doing. He is at the 4th of 4 colleges in the state of Florida when it comes to ranking, perception, recruiting, success, and so I get it. He's trying to take any angle he can to lift up his university. I don't even blame him for the attempt, but When you make comments like this, you certainly open yourself up to criticism. So let's talk about it. If you use the worst stretch of Florida State and Florida football against the best stretch of UCF football ever, which is what the last 6 years are, the overall records do show that UCF has more wins. What that doesn't factor in, though, is the level of competition.
Can you say that struck a nerve? He's not only called out those teams, but he says, we're better than you. And the record states it. And that has not gone over well. And on top of that, here's the big thing. You got to think about recruiting. Look, Florida's a big state with a ton of great players, but they've got 3 huge teams in there that are plucking recruits, and then you got Georgia and Alabama and Tennessee and a bunch of others always going down there and trying to take great players. Well, now if UCF going into the Big 12, all of a sudden they start getting more money and they start divvying up that pie even more, that's going to weaken all 3 of those teams. It's got them scared. And I can't hardly blame them because UCF is, they're not easy. And Florida's actually playing them in 2024 along with Florida State like they always do and Miami. So when you play UCF,
you walk over, but you're limping back.
That's right, you're limping back. So this has really got them upset. Now let's see what a Florida Gator YouTuber has to say about it.
Do you ever hear something so stupid that you have to listen to it a couple of times to make sure that your ears weren't playing tricks on you? This happened to me this week, and I'm sure if you follow college football in the state of Florida like I do, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Gus Malzahn is making headlines for a head-scratching statement that he made earlier this week. UCF joins the Big 12 this season alongside BYU, Cincinnati, and Houston. Malzahn apparently thinks that UCF belongs in the same breath as the Big 3 programs in the state, Florida, Florida State, and Miami. Malzahn said, and y'all, this is a direct quote, you hear about the Big 3, Florida, Florida State, and Miami. It's time for the Big 4. You look at the last 6-8 years, and we've been as good or better than any of those other programs. Listen, I get it. This is totally coach speak. And what exactly is Gus Malzahn supposed to say? But it's an absurd enough statement that it's worth debunking. And let me preface this. I don't usually say nice things about FSU or Miami, but that's what Malzahn has done to me by making this crazy statement this week.
Oh, yeah. He's got the whole state of Florida tore up over this comment. And like I said, they're usually those 3 big teams are at war all the time like this. And they're all pulling back because they've got a common enemy now, which is UCF. Now, it will not last. Believe me, they'll be going right back at it within a day or two. But they have called a truce for about 24 hours while they go after Gus Malzahn. And it's actually pretty entertaining to watch this. I'm telling you, I know we think we know what a feud is. We don't. It's Hatfield, McCoy, and Hatfield down there. Only now they've added another McCoy. And it's getting pretty dicey down there. So I'm going to keep tabs on this and see how this all plays out because this whole Florida thing is very interesting. But now we're going to talk about our guy, Joe Milton. And he was actually interviewed a couple days ago. And they asked him about playing in the Orange Bowl, playing in Florida, and also asked him about Big Ten. And I found all this pretty interesting.
How much more meaningful was the Orange Bowl because of how close to home you were?
Oh, it was very meaningful. I don't lose in Florida. So I took that one to the heart. Pretty much take every game to the heart, but yeah, I don't lose in Florida.
How many friends and family did you have there?
I used like 30 tickets.
Wow.
Yeah, I think I used like 30 tickets.
All right. So that wasn't exactly, I wouldn't call that boastful, but hey, he's confident when he plays in the state of Florida. That's where he's most comfortable. Said he had 30 family members there. I'll tell you what, man, he was under a lot of pressure in that Orange Bowl. I didn't expect him to perform at that level, and I'm glad that he did because it kind of solidified him as our starting quarterback. Really, had he played poorly in that, we probably would have been looking in the transfer portal. But he played so solidly in that it put him in the first position, and it's really his job to lose. And he may play really well this year. He looked good in the spring game, I thought, and his confidence level is really much higher than it was when he first came to Tennessee. Let's also see what he said about the Big Ten. I found this pretty spicy, but it's probably very, very true.
What's the biggest difference you see coming from the Big Ten to the SEC? I mean, we always hear it's faster, it's more physical, all that. Is that what you've seen the last couple of years?
Yeah, guys are way faster. Stronger, no. Michigan was pretty strong, but faster, yes. Guys are actually running sideline to sideline. In the Big Ten, there was only a couple guys that can do that. Like you had Devin Bush, but he was on my team. He wasn't tackling me. So, but you see that. But now you got guys running sideline to sideline pretty much every game.
Are we gonna see you run a little bit more this year?
Whatever happens. I don't know, man. I don't do that. Whatever happens, happens.
Yep. So he's just telling the truth about that. The SEC is a lot faster than the Big Ten. That's why, typically they don't win a national title out of the Big Ten. They fortunately play in an easier conference, so that allows them to get into the college football playoff. But once they get in it, they never seem to win. Even when they've got a team down, like they had Georgia down, Ohio State did, they still lose because they can't really hang with the SEC. It's just kind of the way that it is. And, that's probably one of the main reasons is just the pure speed. The SEC is, it's the G League for the NFL is what it really is, as close as you're going to get to it. But anyway, I thought these were pretty interesting stories. The whole Florida feud and go back and forth and all this, I just find it entertaining. I can't help it. It was also interesting to hear Joe talk about the Big Ten and then how he's going to play in Florida and all that. And before anybody says, oh, well, you just gave Florida bulletin board material, this has already been on YouTube, okay? This is on Locked On SEC, and it was in there. It's been on there for a couple of days, and thousands of people have already seen it. So, the cat's out of the bag on all that anyway. So chill out. All right, folks, just wanted to cover this, talk about the Gus Malzahn brouhaha, and then also talk about Joe Milton, his discussion of the Big Ten, and also how he plays down in Florida. And I hope that's the case because, man, we need to beat those Gators. That's going to be, to me, that's the game of the year. That's going to kind of set the tone for the entire season. I'm not really worried about Virginia or the second game. Third game, at the Swamp at 7 p.m. That is a hard place to play, especially for our team. They usually play their very best for us. And look, I don't care what anybody says. They're going to be as gun-ho to play us as you can possibly imagine. You could give them 1,000 pieces of bulletin board material. They don't need it. It's not going to make any difference. They're going to absolutely go ballistic down there at 7 o'clock. And we're just going to have to whoop them. It's just the way it's going to be. Otherwise, we're going to have to listen to it for a year like they've had to this year. And it's about time. About time they had to listen to some crap. God, they've had our number for a long time, and I'm sick of it. So anyway, if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Let's me know to continue to cover the Vols, the SEC, and the Florida feuding, and all that kind of fun stuff. If you've not subscribed, it's on your right, my left. Just hit that little button. I would appreciate it. And right over here's the most recent video. Be sure to check that one out. YouTube thinks you'll love it. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.